All right. Why don't we go ahead and let's do this? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening again, everybody. My name is Eugene Turk. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the VP of Business Development at Align, and I want to welcome you to our monthly coach webinar for May 2024. Hope everyone is doing well. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. This morning, for me, we are thrilled to have Azim Sahu-Khan with a presentation entitled The 6-Week Vacation, Hiding in Your Business, Unlocking the Path to Exponential Growth Beyond Scalability and Systemization. Wouldn't we all love to take a 6-week vacation? For those of you who may not be familiar with Azim, as I mentioned, he is an Australian-based author, marketing strategist, business success accelerator, investor, and coach with more than 20 years experience starting, scaling, and selling businesses across several different industries and helping others do the same. His creatively simple marketing campaigns and his focus on internal systems and processes have helped his clients more than double their 7-figure operations in only 18 months' time and take a holiday from their business with a no internet attachment policy. Essentially, he believes it's an obligation to help owners realize the full potential of their business so that they can achieve the business owner's dream of financial independence and lifestyle freedom, which is what we all want. His catch cry is, quote, reimagine your business, reclaim your life. We are really honored to have Azim present for us this month. As always, one administrative matter. We want this to be as educational and informational for all of you as possible. Please feel free to pose any questions that you may have using the chat feature or the Q&A feature within Zoom, and we will gather those questions and direct them to Azim at the conclusion of the presentation. Again, thank you everybody for attending this Align Coach webinar, and I will now turn the microphone over to Azim.
Thanks, Eugene, and thanks everybody for attending today. In fact, to be honest, I'm actually in a lot of your guys tomorrow, so that's a good thing because that means that there is a tomorrow for you all. But please don't put in the chat what are the winning lottery numbers, because that's against the rules, isn't it? I'm not really allowed to tell you that. So you have to wait for yourself. But we can all sleep well tonight knowing that there is a tomorrow. So look, everybody is here to move their business forward in some way, not just to take on more information. Because, you know, I've heard a great speaker say we live in an age of infobesity. You know, there's too much information and not enough information. So if you're a business owner, just put a B in or a senior executive, put a B in the chat there, just so I get some semblance of who's here at the moment. So just looking at the chat there. Okay. Okay, so excellent. So then what we've got is, you know, is it okay if I just give it to you how it is, right? You know, there's no sugarcoating, just the facts and ideas. You know, it could be a little bit uncomfortable. Eugene didn't tell you this, but I often get, it was actually a client who introduced me once as the gift wrapped in sandpaper. So, so there'll be no holes barred. So, you know, also, most importantly, is it okay that I'm not going to sell you anything today? There's no pitch, there's no scarcity, there's no follow-up, there's no value ladder, no credit card. Just relax. Is that okay? Just put a Y in the chat if it's okay that I don't sell you anything today. And it's against the rules anyway, so that's fine. Excellent. Love to hear it. Everybody can relax, right? But here's the caveat. Oh, Ivan's given us lots of yeses, so that's really important, right? So, but here's the caveat on that, right? I'm not going to sell you anything, but I'm going to ask you to buy into some new ways of thinking. Because the reality is, we don't like to be sold to, but we love to buy things. Has anyone else ever been into a store where the assistant's gone, hey, lovely day, isn't it? And you just snap back, just looking, right? It's become a conditioned response, isn't it, that we don't want to buy things. But you know, and I always think that's funny, but we do love to buy. We just like to be sold to. So, you know, I'll talk about the exact 6-week vacation at the moment. So we're in the right place. You want to accelerate the growth of your business. You want to expand your growth as a person, and you're okay with having your beliefs challenged. Because I do find, as they say, and there's lots of business owners here, basically the bottleneck is nearly always at the top of the bottle, right? So, congratulations, we're all crazy because we think we put our finances on the line, our relationships on the line, many times other people's finances on the line, our health, both mental and physical, on the line, and we work 100 hours a week or more just to avoid working 40 hours for somebody else, right? So we've got to be crazy to look at that. But often what happens is, and I will talk about the 6-week vacation in a moment, is what happens is that we're told how to basically get further and further involved in our business. And, you've got to scale your business and you've got to do all these wonderful things, but no one really shows you how to extract yourself from the business in an effective way. And I don't mean just sell it, right? So they either end up with a job they own, or they end up with being a business operator, where essentially if they stop working in the business effectively stops. Then there's a business owner who a lot of people get to that stage where they've got a team and all that sort of thing. But the reality is, if there's still some important decision to be made, or there's some fire to put out, the phone, you get a text, or you get an email, or you're constantly checking email, because sometimes the business doesn't actually need you, but you feel it does. And the fourth stage really is your business as an investment, right? It's basically you are the sole investor in the business, not always the sole investor, but the main investor in the business, and it's paying you a dividend, and you have zero operational input into the business. It's a bit like when you buy shares in another business. So the 6 weeks is real. Okay, and that came out of many keynotes and seminars that I've done over the years. And people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do these things." So let me ask you this question: do you think there's 1 hour in a day where you're doing something that's repetitive, that's probably below your pay rate, is boring, something that doesn't light you up, and something it's just repetitive thing that somebody else could be doing with the right training? Just 1 hour every day. Dare I say, maybe even wasting some time. Well, that's true for most people, that there is an hour a day. But if you take 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, and let's not worry even about the weekend, you end up with 240 hours in a year if you don't include, like, we just do it over the 48, right? So our staff gets a month's holiday. Well, they do in Australia anyway. So we've got that 240 hours. The average working week around the world is 40. You divide 40 into 240, and we just found 6 weeks of time. Actually, I like to call it energy rather than time. We found 6 weeks of energy just by recovering 1 hour of that energy a day. So, one of the other things I want to do, the promise really is that, I'm gonna stretch your mind to a new way of thinking, just like this great quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes is, man's mind stretched to a new idea never goes back to its original dimension. And business is simple. So put in the chat whoever knows who this band is. Come on, there's some people who know. There we go. Eugene knows. Even got the slash in the middle. Okay, excellent. So business is as simple as AC/DC, right? Because what we do is essentially what we're doing is we acquire a prospect, we convert them to a customer, we deliver the service or product, and we collect the money. And to be honest, a lot of people are really bad at the last C in collecting the money. And as the song goes, that's when we are on the highway to hell, right? So one of the things is that I look at is we look at a business in this way, and it really represents three different things. And most people recognize, I'm not saying that your businesses are here now, but you will have seen businesses or experienced it yourself at some point in time. And what we've got over here is we've got busy work. And what we really want that to be is we want that to be business clarity. And on the other side of it, what we've actually got is we've got variable results. Oops. We hope if I could spell it this time of the morning, but that's okay. And what we actually want is we want a well-oiled machine. And down the bottom, what's happening down here is we change the business. And what we're really looking for is freedom of choice. See, because I believe that the quality of your life is determined by your ability to choose. You know, in Western society and for a lot of us, we can pretty much choose what we're going to eat today. We can choose what we want to do today. But there are other people in other countries that can only eat what they can get. So, you know, so I believe our ability to choose is like, and there's a great analogy is when a lot of people go into a restaurant, you tend to look at the right-hand side, which is the prices, before you look at the left-hand side, and you invariably will pick the chicken, right? So the goal in life is to read from the left-hand side of the menu. So, you know, let me show you a model because this comes from a larger presentation, and it's a basically framework that I put through businesses through to get to our automagic business, which is essentially the 6-week vacation. Because the trick is with the 6-week vacation is to be able to take it all at once. And the side effect of you taking that 6-week vacation from your business or anything like that, and let me stress, it's from the operation of your business, right? You can sit on the beach if you like the first picture was, but we find that a lot of people, 10% of what they do is the magic that they love to do, which is the thing that they're really good at, that really lights them up. If we can free you from the operation of the business, so you can lean into that 10%, which is your magic, then it's a business that you just love doing, right? And the reality is and we'll do an exercise in a minute, is that the average business owner really only spends between 5 or 10% of their time every week moving the business forward. All the rest falls into those other areas. So as I said before, I talk about energy rather than time, because we can't manage time, but we can manage energy. And really going on that previous triangle I showed you, the 3 areas that we look at is we reveal where the energy is in a business. And that is, you know, what you are doing as the business owner, like who as in your team, and where in the current state of affairs of where it is. And then when we look at recovering that energy, that comes to extracting what I like to call the DNA of repeatability, which is essentially another way of talking about the systems and the way you do things there. Then we integrate it where we're talking about the people and the process. And finally, we initiate it, whereas you're actually handing over the accountability of parts of your business. And at the bottom here, we're talking about redeploying the energy. And this particular diagram really applies to you. So it's your strategy where you're working above the business. It's your strengths in terms of, you know, your own wellness, your web of people around you, your own personal wealth. And then the symmetry, meaning like, you know, the proportions you want to spend of time you want to spend in the business, your preferences, and basically what's your personal pathway beyond the business. So when we talk about this, we often hear people saying, oh, you know, you need to be working smarter, not harder. But let me pose this question to you. Does every smart person have a good business? Well, no, they don't, you know. And does that also mean that every hard worker is not smart? Well, we all know that's not true either. And then, you know, people talk about, oh, you know, you've got to work, you've got to work on your business and not in it. Well, is everyone who works on business successful? No. But what I believe is that you have to work above your business. And that is basically you're not involved in the operation of it. So let me just give you a quick example. I had a couple of award-winning cafes many years ago. My wife and I did. So like working in the business is like where you're opening the shop, making the coffee, serving the customers, ordering supplies, sweeping the floors, all that good sort of stuff, right? When you're working on the business, you're installing your systems, you're creating processes, you're automating tasks, you're hiring team members, and you delegate work. In fact, in most cases, I didn't have to work in those cafes. I only did it when I felt like doing it. Was really to get direct feedback from customers and that sort of thing. And then working above the business is where you are hiring your operators, your general manager, your CEO, your chief operations officer. You're securing investors. You're working with mentors and advisors, participating in advisory boards, entering new verticals, all that sort of thing. That's essentially what working above your business is. And I like to think of working beyond your business as to where your market is going and where it is that you want to take that business. So here's an exercise that I'd like you all to do over the next week is basically just take yourself a little pocketbook, or you can do it on your phone if you want to. It's not a timesheet, but every time you change the activity in your day, just put a bullet point. So, checked email, attended Eugene's presentation, whatever it is. Not really concerned about the time in there, just concerned the fact that you did that activity, and do that for a week, and then have a look at it. And I've had some great results over the last five or 6 years where, I've had one lady come back and she, I just realized I come back to the same thing 6 or 7 times in the day. And, we got her sorted out as to what she was doing. But at the end of the week, what you want to do is we want to make it into 2 columns. And I've got an example of one here, which was done by a franchisee client of mine in New Zealand. Now, there are windows and doors repair, like a handyman sort of franchise. And I love this one because it does have, you can see that there's a T stain up here, right? And so it's as real as you get. So this is the actual list. And when we looked at it, when we broke it down, we saw that, he spent time doing, so we're breaking the list into 2 columns. One is only the stuff that you believe you can do. And on the other side, we're looking at the stuff that potentially anyone could do with the right training. So this wasn't the full list, but it was pretty close. And we found out that he spent time doing minor quotes, quote follow-up. He did daily planning, job allocation, incoming stock. I'll make it a little bit larger. Incoming stock. He was stocking the shelves, when stuff came in. He was breaking down screens because they did powder coating of screens. Taking orders to the powder coders, chasing up the powder coders, processing pay slips and invoices and statements, delivering stock to the staff. So he was actually out in the field. He was ordering parts, vehicle presentation. Yes, he used to wash the vans in the evening, following up on orders and assisting, staff on the bigger jobs, which is all the things that he thought he had to be doing. On the side, when he really thought about it, on the things that only, this gentleman's name is Neil, was that only he could do was major quotes, working with trading partners, looking after like more of the larger ordering around the vehicles, authorizing the paying of wages, authorizing the paying of bills, budgeting, sale development, complaint follow-ups, and following up on overdues. Now, in over 5 years of doing this, nearly every time the business owners list looks about the same proportions. It's usually about 1/3 of what you're doing is the stuff that you believe you need to be doing, and 2/3 could be done by somebody else with the appropriate systems and processes, and in many cases just training. But interesting thing about that, if you get someone to be about 80% of what you can be and grow into the final 20% of that role, you find you get a better result than just to find a mini me. But even on this list, and I think there's about 23 things on this list, is you find that it's pretty close to the 80-20 rule, right? And even on this list, what I challenge you to do is take that 20%, the stuff that's on the right-hand side of your list there, and then do the 80-20 again. You do the 80-20 on the 20, so you end up with about 4%. And so on this list of 23 things there really was only 2 things that were really critical to moving the business forward. And one was working with trading partners, and the other one was sale development. Everything else we pretty much were able to handle with a great executive assistant and some systems and processes put in place, and a lot of the accountability put back on the team. What was the end result? in the 31-year history of that franchise system, they became the second franchisee ever to break $1 million in revenue in a year. And he and his wife took it was just short of 6 weeks, but they took a 5-week vacation here in Australia to visit their son and their new grandchild, their first grandchild. And he gave me a great testimonial saying it was the first time they were able to be away from their business without having to worry that it was going to operate without them. So this is a great exercise to do. And what's more important is when you look at the value of what you're doing here, that is really key. So the idea is if you take your revenue, your current revenue, and you don't need to put it in the chat, right? So don't do that. I've had that happen once before. Take your current revenue and divide it by the number 2080, which is basically 40 hours times 52 weeks, right? Whatever number that you come up with is the dollar value per hour that you, as the business owner, are accountable for. Okay, don't call it your hourly rate, but that's what you're accountable for. So if you want to increase your revenue, let's just make it simple, by 100,000 in a year, so you want to increase the revenue, then essentially you're accountable for $48 an hour in revenue growth. So every hour that you're spent chasing vans and washing things is actually money that you're spending and time you're spending or energy you're expending, not moving the business forward, but just doing that busy work we were talking about. So if you say, okay, well, as a salary, as a business owner, what I want the business to pay me is $150,000 a year. That's essentially $72 an hour. So the formula I like to use is if I can, with the right training and processes in place, if I can get that task done for 60% or less than my hourly rate, I really shouldn't be doing it. And at $150,000 a year, you've got $72 an hour. That's like $43.20 an hour for someone to do all the stuff that you really shouldn't be doing, or less, depending on what process it is. If it's non-customer facing, you could use a virtual assistant who may not be even in your country to do it, or you can use someone who may not be great presenting, but is great with numbers. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So that's what it looked like for this particular franchisee, and we had some great results there. So one of the other things, and if I just quickly go back to this diagram here, is what we were just talking about there is essentially this area in here. We were talking about the what, the variety of work that he did, the volume of work that he did, and the validity of whether he should be doing it or not. The other thing I'd like to talk about today is up here, which is into isolate, which is around the systems, where we examine, we extract, and we evaluate, which is essentially the DNA of repeatability. Okay, so when you look at it, I'll get to it in a moment, but when you look at it, a successful business has the ability, I'll just keep Neil's list up there. A successful business has the ability to do things over and over again at a reducing cost of execution and an increasing speed of execution. So essentially it's repeatability. So write this down in your notes. The purpose of a business, the number one character of a business is repeatability. And so we talk about systems, structures, staffing, and resources. And so these things that no one really finds exciting. In fact, it's usually the stuff that makes people's eyes glaze over and ears to shut down and brain starts to twitch. And those things are actually the sexiest things in business. When people talk about systems, they immediately think about McDonald's. McDonald's has been doing this for 50 years, right? When I work with businesses with systems, and the first thing we systemize is the thing that actually makes you the money, right? It's a really important thing. I don't care how you fold the toilet paper in the washroom. That's not important. McDonald's cares. We don't, not at this stage anyway. So, the thing with it being the sexiest thing in business is just no one really understands that, right? And the reason they're the sexiest thing in business is because they are the heartbeat. They are the drumbeat. They are the metronome for the single most important characteristic in business, which is repeatability. So to help us with the diminishing cost of execution and increasing that speed of execution. So yes, systems are sexy, but there are two most important systems in business: is the system for thinking and the system for influence. The ability to come up with and then frame up some really powerful ideas in an executable form, which is your products and services, right? And so the systems that we require The second most important system in a business is the system for influence, which is the ability to be able to make a choice in your favor, customers to buy from you, staff to work hard for you, suppliers to serve you well, regulators to lay off you and cooperate, right? We all have that problem at times. So like every problem in a business boils down to either a system that is broken or a system that is not there. I've yet to find an issue with the business that doesn't lead to one of those things. However, here's the important thing. Most businesses are a collection of habits rather than systems. And they're usually the owner's habits, and they're not always good. And in fact, sometimes we've found it's that the habit that is actually breaking the system, because we don't get what we want in life, we get our habits, right? James Clear in Atomic Habits said, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? Your business can only get as big as your ability to handle challenges and will always fall to the level of your systems. And, to give an example, one of my clients a number of years ago had a large firm that built frames and trusses. So the very intricate quoting system. And the bottleneck was in the quote. We had a great sales team. They were going out there. They were doing sales all day. We had a marvelous factory, but it was dormant. There was hardly anything going through the factory. And the bottleneck appeared to be in the quoting department. So when we drilled into it, and I started to investigate, and I ended up getting an HR consultant friend of mine in and to have a look at the problem. The problem was actually job definition and accountability. And what was happening when I drilled into it and started turning over some rocks, what was happening was the salespeople saying, "Hey, look, Azim, I need this quote done up." And it's quite a complex thing, so it can take days to do a full quote. I need this quote done up, and then raced off to the next sale. What was happening in there was the information being given was incomplete. Did they want treated pine? Did they want natural pine? A few little things like that. And that was stacking up because they were waiting. The folks doing the quoting were waiting and haranguing the salespeople to get them this information. So when we changed the accountability around, so that was a habit, right? The salespeople had a habit of just give it to them, they'll be able to sort it out. And we changed the accountability around and gave the people the authority to say, "Hey, Zim, no, take this away, and when you bring it back complete, then we will process it." So they put it back on the salespeople. And obviously the salespeople were going to get it through because they needed their commission and all that sort of stuff. The end result was, and this is one I'm really proud of because it was an HR problem, not something that not a sales problem. We ended up increasing the average turnover of that business by $970,000 per month, every month, without increasing the sales or marketing budget by $1, right? And I had lunch with that gentleman about 18 months ago, and he said, "Azim, when we did that work with you all, those few years ago, I worked it out. It was, it made us an extra $32 million." And I said, "Graham, that tells me one thing." And he says, "What's that?" And I said, "I didn't charge you enough to do the work." But it can be that simple, right? So one of the most critical things about this, and particularly from the quality point of view, is the systems should be producing, it shows that be producing things that it shouldn't be producing when they're not fully engaged. So we are seeing things that we shouldn't be. Are things falling through the cracks where they shouldn't be? Are we taking shortcuts where we shouldn't be? And often as business owners, we believe something's happening one way when the habits of the people doing the work actually show it to be another way. So contrast is an important concept, but yet nobody really talks about it. You see, there's a great thing that I like to think of. See, darkness is the absence of light. There's no dark switch. When you leave the room, you turn off the light. You don't turn on the dark switch. So great systems can show you where the dark is because something that should be happening isn't, or something that should be happening, that should be happening isn't, or something that shouldn't be happening is. See, the success in business is a function of having a depth of value you create and your ability to communicate it. That's it. That's all. And let me create what might be a really big paradigm shift in your thinking. Systems are actually a communication tool, not an activity tool. Systems are a communication tool. It's a way of getting everybody to do the right things at the right time in the right way. You can teach it without systems and trust that your education mechanisms and then you have everybody doing the right thing the right way, but they don't. right? Everyone's got an example of where that hasn't worked. So pilots have checklists, surgeons have checklists. They have all these communication tools to make sure everybody in the cockpit or at the operating table knows what to do, right? So what I found in a lot of the businesses that I've dealt with over the years is it pretty much, I'd like to share some insights that we typically see across the entire market of businesses that I've worked with, and other people that work with me have as well, right? And you'll find your business somewhere in here. And now what we often see in the full range of business, it's a bit like a bell curve. So the bell curve is real, and it's as true in this work as it is in every other field of elite performance. So your business will fall somewhere along here depending on level of systemization. So at the red level, what we've got is down here at this end of the bell curve, right? At this end of the bell curve, um, we've got businesses that are really sitting here and they're in what we call survival mode. Hang on, let me just move this. They're down here and they're in survival mode, right? And survival is we look at this performance curve here, and essentially variable results that, oops, didn't mean to erase it like that. Variable results here, which are up and down, and it's not consistency, right? And what's happening there is essentially that's a sad face because it's not where we want to be. And it's a pretty painful place to be. And the thing that's holding it back, honestly, is it's littered with bottlenecks, just like the one I spoke about. Right? You can't get that decreasing cost of execution and increasing speed, and you just can't survive down here when you've got all these bottlenecks everywhere. Now, I suspect that you're not at that level. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't even be talking here right now, but you might know some business owners that are there. Do you know of anyone who's in that situation right now? Just have a think. How does that feel? It doesn't feel great, does it? And then when we get to the next level, the level above that is we're then getting to, the bell curve says there's a whole lot of average in the middle. And there's a lot of businesses, they're not going backwards, but they're really kind of stationary here. My father was a doctor. That's why my handwriting is so bad, right? And really, the key to moving through this, right? It's, basically, it's not an unhappy place to be, but it's kind of like mediocre, right? We've got better things happening down here with our growth curve, but it's kind of flat. It's like incremental, right? So the key to moving through here is really to extract. That's where we want to extract that DNA of repeatability. What holds the business stationary is having to focus on thinking about doing the things that should happen automatically, right? That's what holds the business stationary, is having to think and focus on doing those things each day that actually should be happening automatically. Now, I don't know if you find yourself at that level at all, or even if part of your business is in that level. Would you say that they're a part of your business at that level at the moment, where you have to have people attend to things all the time? Some folks have their entire business at that level. So does anybody have any part of their business at that level at the moment, where you still have to attend to things and that probably should be happening by themselves? Just put a Y. We're all friends here, so just put a Y in the chat if part of your business, or someone whose business was essentially in that area there, where they're just kind of stuck. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because you're growing, right, but very, very slowly, right? So then we get to this next level, which is the light green level here, which is the next level along. And once you can extract that DNA repeatability, which we're calling systems, right, we just don't like using that word because it's not sexy, right? Is that we get to this light green level where the business is scalable. Right? The business is scalable. And, it's an interesting thing because a lot of people see that scaling as the ultimate goal. You go in business conferences and you hear it on the internet or whatever. Everyone's talking about scale this and scale that, and yes, the curve is steeper, right? it is going up further here, as you can see, right? And it's definitely a happy place to be. But a lot of people will puff out their chest and smile and say, yes, I've got a scalable business, which, dare I say, just means that you've done what you've meant to have been doing, which is you've got a repeatable process in your business. You have a repeatable business that hopefully has a decreasing cost of execution with increasing speed. And that's what scalability is, that decreasing cost of execution, which includes effort and increasing speed. And so congratulations, you've done what you meant to have done, right? How does this feel? And there may be parts of your business that are in there as well. How did we get there? How do we get to a scalable business? Because the key to that is that we organize. I even did it with a Z for you folks, right? We organize, right? And it's so that people can see it. Our systems, they can see it as to what we've extracted and how we get into the shape. So we've got systems that we can see it, we can pick it up, we can turn it over, we can use it. So it's making the intangible tangible. Systems really make that intangible tangible. Here's the thing about businesses. Every business rises and falls on leadership, right? Every business rises and falls on leadership. Your business is nothing more than an amplification of who you are as a person. But to create the space and time for you to be the leader the business needs you to be, first of all, you need to be the manager it needs you to be. We manage the visible and we lead the invisible. And until you make the repeatability of your business visible with documented systems that people can pick up and turn over and look at upside down and twist around and side to side, you're not managing. And as long as you're not managing, that's what's going to consume your thinking time, putting out fires, urgent things, busy work. And this leaves you with no space and time for thinking. But if you do organize things so you can manage it, and it allows you to, there's a line here that I've drawn that you can see a line here, right? And what we like to call this is the good enough line. And if you organize things properly, you can actually jump this good enough line, right? And people get to scalability and go, hey, that's good enough. We're better than most. Yeah, that's good enough. It's the good enough that traps you. What if Steve Jobs and Apple had created the iPod and went, well, that's good enough, right? Somebody else would have made the iPhone and the iPod, and they would have become the greatest company in the world. The people that never settle because champions never settle, right? So we get to the dark green edge here. And when we get to the dark green edge, what we've got now is we've got a saleable business. And at the saleable business, it's a very happy face. Teeth. Still got the hair. It's all good, right? And it creates the opportunity for exponential return for me as a person who's going to buy the business, because I can get a disproportionate return if I were to buy that business or your business than anything else I could spend my money on. And, what would make it feel like if you could get your business right there, right now? And this is all about optimization. So it's beyond scaling, right? And now we know that most people use the word optimization with no clue about what it actually means, right? Okay. So if I were to draw a number, like if we say down here is 1 and up here is 10 and 5, 3, 4, 2, 7, 6, 8, 9, and 10, just put in the chat where you think your business is, the majority of your business is at that moment along that bell curve. Just let's see where people think they are at the moment. Bit of 4, 5, and 6, 6, 5 to 6, which is great. I'm glad to see we've got nobody down at 1 and 2. That's awesome, right? And it's a fundamental shift in your business when you're getting there. You see, it's really interesting because when we talk about these things, it's essentially It's like an iceberg, right? I've got this great picture of an iceberg here. So when we talk about an iceberg, is when I start talking about systems and optimization and things like that, is people start asking me about what software or tools that they should use. People say, well, what's the software that we should use and what's the systems that we should use? But my response is, realistically, that's a very shallow conversation, right? And I can stay shallow in that conversation, or we can go deep, right? And I'm going to explore deep today because, see, the deeper conversation is really about the results. Like an iceberg, what you see is it's about 10% is above the waterline, right? And the truth is, we can throw tools, techniques, and technology at the iceberg in one direction. We can pour as much wind as we like at the tip of the iceberg in that one direction, but the iceberg is always going to move in the direction of the base because that's where the power is, right? And what I really like to talk about is the base. But can you imagine what's in between the tip of the iceberg and the base? Well, it's actually the thing that should matter to all of you most. And what matters to you most more than anything else? Well, we've got a relatively short presentation today, but I'll fill in the blank for you. But what should matter to all of you, and many people will say profit down here and all that sort of thing, and profit could be cash in the bank. And like I like to say, your turnover is your vanity, your profit is your sanity, but the cash in the bank is the reality. People will say to me, "Oh, Azim, we made $250,000 profit last year. That's fantastic, Eugene. Where's the money?" Right? And it's a totally different conversation as to what happens, right? No harm, Eugene. I'm not saying that you are embezzling $250,000, right? Anyway, so but the thing is, what we're about down here is this bit between the tip of the iceberg and the bottom is actually all about results. And really, there's three big results in here. And the first one is certainty. Imagine if you could go to your business every day and have certainty about what is going to happen. How would that feel? Put that in the chat. How would that feel? And it's so far from most people's experience. It's not funny, right? But if you could get every day, you could go to the business every day. In fact, you could take that 6-week vacation, have certainty about how the business was going while you were away. How would that feel? Just pop that in the chat. How would that make you feel if you knew pretty much what was going to happen every day? Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Michael, relaxing. Yeah, I like that. So the second key thing is that certainty is around the business is a higher level of performance. Right? Than any of your competitors or contemporaries have in their businesses. So how would it feel if you went on that 6-week vacation with certainty that your business will perform at a higher level than any of your competitors or your contemporaries? How would that feel? That would feel awesome for me anyway, right? If for business that you can do that, you that you don't have to worry about your competitors and your contemporaries, you're doing fine. And the third thing is buy-in, right? So how would it feel if you went on a 6-week vacation from your business? We've talked about how to get it. And just an interesting aside about that 6-week vacation. When we've actually done that over the years, there's a side effect of that. And the side effect is you end up doubling your business. Why? Because for you to be away for any period of time, you have to have robust systems and processes in place. So you've got these predictability things that we're speaking about. That's why I'm speaking about the DNA of repeatability. The other thing is you actually have to have enough profit to be able to pay someone, compensate someone, to be accountable, not just responsible, but to be accountable in your absence and to run the show, or in some cases be part of the show. So we have to get the profit to a level. So the side effect of having the end goal of you being away for 6 weeks is we end up doubling the business, and we've nearly done it. We've done it nearly every time. And to be honest, some of it is just getting you guys out of the way. Right? Okay. And we find out, like, oh yeah, if only I had the freedom to do this. Okay, well, let's do that then, right? So, how would it feel if you went on that 6-week vacation and you had certainty about your business being able to perform at a higher level than your competitors and your contemporaries, and you know that the people that are back there doing that for you are absolutely protecting it with a vengeance on your behalf? How would that feel if your team was actually looking after your business and not necessarily treating it as their own, because we know that they don't. So that's a fallacy. Oh, I want my team to think of it as their own business, right? So these are important things, right? So I believe that amazing entrepreneurs and heroic entrepreneurs like yourselves, the risk takers, the people that stepped out of the illusion of the security of employment that creates, that's an illusion, and decided that we're going to create jobs, contribute to the economy, and make a difference to their businesses. Heroic entrepreneurs like you guys, you deserve complete, and let me emphasize this word, complete. You need complete business reliability, because that's what you deserve, right? And isn't that what we want? If you can do it for 6 weeks, then why not for 6 months, right? And I've seen people do this, okay? So many people say you can't predict the future, but I believe we can. And it looks a bit like this. So today, for me anyway, it's the 24th of the 5th, 24. And I'm prepared to put money on it that in 12 months' time, it's going to be the 24th of the 5th, 25. So there you go. Future's predicted. Okay. And you're going to be in one of two futures, your business, right? We went through the bell curve. You're either going to be, you're going to be at the bottom in survival mode. Right. It's not changing color for me. Oh, here we go. You're going to be in survival mode, right? And what that is, that's a function of drift. And we're just going along doing the things that we've always done, and we're going down, right? Because remember the bell curve we talked about before? It's a function of your decisions and your actions, right? And as a sidebar, there's a great book. Just put in the chat if you've read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Just a why will be fine if you've read that or if you've heard of it. Right. Yeah. Okay. So there's another book by Napoleon Hill, and it's worth getting the audiobook version because it wasn't published till 2011. His wife wouldn't let him publish it because she was worried about the contents of it. And it's called Outwitting the Devil. And grab hold of that. The audiobook's fine because the guy who plays the devil is just awesome. And essentially, what it's about is quite scary about some of the predictions in there. What it's about is the devil has to tell the truth, answer truthfully to all of Napoleon Hill's questions in the story. And one of the things he asks about is how does he get all of these things done? And he says he has helpers. So his whole point is to remove independent thinking from people through the school systems, through religious systems, through parents, and all that sort of thing. It's quite frightening to listen to, but it is a great thing. But what it's actually doing is people are drifting along. He uses the word drift in there a lot. They are drifting along doing the things that they've always done, right? The other place that you could end up in a year's time is you'll end up here with a scalable business, right? And again, it's a function of decisions and actions, right? There's a third line through the middle, as you can see there, but it's more of a wiggly line, right? Because, it's the things that we talked about. Oh, well, I'll try to do a launch, or, I will do this new product a new product line, and then it drops down again, and then we had this sales drive, and then it dropped down again. And essentially it does this and this and this. I think we've all experienced that at some point in our careers, and we pretty much end up where we are today in years' time, right? But really, this amber line is just this red line in disguise, right? So there's really only two futures. One is green and one's everything else. And the tackling of repeatability of your business is what we call a green line decision, right? It's not, and not tackling repeatability is red line drift. And it's pretty obvious that if you wait 12 months before you start doing anything about this, the lines will get further apart, right? And if your nearest competitor has got onto the green line and you haven't, then the gap between the green line and the red line is actually the gap between you and your nearest competitors. And what would that mean for you? And addressing this down the track, it becomes harder, it becomes riskier, and it's way more costly. So when this gap here in a year's time, right? So what do you think your first decision is, right? The green line is about making decisions. Your first decision, essentially, is to jump onto the green line. And the reality is, today, as we are here, the three lines are going to be the closest that they're ever going to be, right? And the green line is about decisions, right? And that's your first decision. Your first decision is to get on the green line and say, yes, we're going to do something about this. We're going to examine our business. We're going to work through it, right? So, whether I work with a company or not, what I really want you to vocalize for me and to think about is what is the most important first decision. And that's number one is to get on the green line. Very simple, right? And even if you're going to make the decision to get on the green line, when it comes down to business repeatability, right, is, well, the first phase of getting onto that green line always involves cleanup and reset, right? And that's going to be one of the most frustrating parts for anybody, because you're going to have to stop doing some stuff that are now habits in the business. You're going to have to start doing some stuff that are not habits in the business. And you're going to upset a few of your staff. In fact, I can probably guarantee you're going to upset a few of your staff. The reset is like going on a diet. No one likes it, but you can't avoid it, right? And I want you to understand the decision you're making here, jumping that line, is like saying, I'm going to do this reset. But the future cannot happen without the reset. You just can't happen without the reset, right? And, it could take as simple as 30 days to reset. It could take 180 days. It depends on what shape your business is in right now, And what you cover is that that you are now on that path, right? Because then you're talking about, what's your customer experience like through your sales and your onboarding, all this sort of stuff's really dialed in, right? And what we know is we haven't explored the vertical. And the vertical is that, drift here is this curve heading downwards, right? And the important thing is that, nobody actually falls off this green line up here, right? They actually behave their way off the green line. But the vertical that I want to explore here is, we know that drift is this curve heading downwards, but it's possible that if you've got a debilitating illness, your drift could turn into a vertical collapse, right? And, things like pandemics and shutdowns and also natural disasters, they can all cause, a vertical thing. But usually what I find, it's something that happens with the owner or the really key person in the business that they didn't realize the whole business depended on. And the only insurance that you can have against a vertical collapse through illness or something else, the insurance is repeatability. It's the green line repeatability of your business that will continue to deliver what you wanted to deliver at that decreasing cost of execution and increasing speed of execution. The green line is the thing that protects you against this. So it turns out that systems are the best insurance policy you can have for your business. People take out directors' insurance to protect themselves against compliance breach. Just how about have some great systems to complete, so you're protecting yourself against those breaches. And it doesn't work every time, but less expensive, right? You know, people do all sorts of marketing strategies to try to insure themselves against poor customer experiences and failed sales and things like that. How about build the systems as an insurance policy? So the only controllable insurance policy you could possibly have is the one that you build yourself, which is your systems, right? Every other insurance policy is owned by somebody else and driven by their profit, not yours, right? Insurance policies are driven by their profit and not yours. And insurance is really interesting. It's one of the things that we buy that we hope we'll never use. Anyway, your first green line decision is to make that, you know, like is to say, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to do moving forward. So, you know, if you could just actually be one vacation away from creating the business that you desire, right? As I like to say, if you can't have your cake and eat it, then what's the point of cake? Thanks very much, everybody. I'll stop sharing there. We'll take any questions, Eugene.
Absolutely, Azim. Thank you very much for a really, really exceptional presentation. We do have just a few minutes, so if there are questions, one of the questions that I just answered, but I wanted to make sure that it was the book that you mentioned was called Outwitting the Devil. Is that correct?
Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
By Napoleon Hill. So yes, there was a question posed about that. But if anybody does have any questions, please use the chat at this time. If not, Azim, I will ask one question.
Yes.
This has all been fantastic, but what this presupposes is that you have good people on your team that can be held accountable, that can operate these systems, that can help you operate the business in your absence. And I know that this is probably the topic of a completely separate coach webinar that you could put on for us, but give us just a quick sort of your thoughts on how do we put the right people in place to be able to do this and create that DNA repeatability in the business and create individuals who are going to be held accountable in doing this in our absence.
So one of the key things is actually, as I said before, you know, the bottleneck's always at the top of the bottle, Eugene. And what I find with most businesses that I work with is the definition of what is that they want to come, the input and output of that particular role. So when I start working in the business, I say, give me your organizational chart without the people in it. So I just want to see the functions that they're trying to fulfill and what is it that's coming out of there. And many people on this call will be familiar with, you know, the scorecards from top grading and all that sort of thing as to do that. But defining what that role is the first step, right? And defining what that person is accountable for is the first step, because if they don't know what that is, how can they be held to that result? And I find that is usually the first step, is saying, okay, Mr. Business Owner or Miss Business Owner or whatever it is, why does this role even exist? That's usually my first question. And quite often in businesses, particularly multi-generational family businesses, just, oh, well, Auntie Mary's always done that for us. And we thought she'd be good at this. And, you know, she likes, her niece likes to use the internet. So we thought she'd be a great social media manager. That's what happens. So the first step to answer your question is define what the output of the role is, you know. And when I was using that example of delegation earlier as the dollar figure, if you look as a scaling strategy to say, well, if I'm hiring someone for $30 an hour, I should be able to get $60 an hour return for that person to help me scale. What a lot of people forget is that putting on an admin staff to take that busy work away from you frees you up for that time. So now it's my responsibility to go out and earn twice as much as whatever I put that person on for. And usually you find that that is the case, but better than me fluffing around with emails and stuff like that. Does that answer the question for you?
It does. Fantastic. Sounds great. Looking forward to
Heinz,
our
looking forward
tomorrow.
to tomorrow.
That's right. Thank you, Heinz. All right. If there are no other questions, I want to thank everybody for attending today's coach webinar. A big thank you again to Azim for a really great presentation. For those that want to learn more about him or follow up with him, I suggest that you visit his profile on LinkedIn. Again, his name is Azim, Azim, Sahu, Sahu, Khan, Khan. As always, we encourage you to use the Align software to implement some of these great business habits. If you need assistance or more information from us, please don't hesitate to contact your Align advisor or simply email us at support@aligntoday.com. Thank you again. We hope that you will join us for our next coach webinar. More information and dates will be forthcoming about that. Till then, we hope that everyone has a great day. And yes, for those of you in the United States, we hope that you have a wonderful Memorial Day holiday weekend. Azim, always a pleasure seeing you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Be well.